Off the bat, I'm just going to let you know that the Sigma 18-35 is by far going to be the most popular lens being used with the Canon R7 for video work. I've done a video on it in the past, so I'm not going to go into every little detail on the Sigma 18-35. I'll have a link to that video in the description. But today I'm going to go over the 5 reasons why the Sigma 18-35 is the best lens for video with the Canon R7. Now, I haven't been able to bring the 18-35 and the R7 on any gigs yet. However, I have been playing with this combination to get ready to bring it on some of my bigger gigs I have coming up in August. So today you'll see a lot of example footage of me messing around and also filming some YouTube videos for this week and next week using this combination. And even with me using it with Canon's variable ND adapter, it is by far my favorite combination, which is probably what I'm going to be bringing to film most of my YouTube videos while I go out, unless I need to be super tight and compact. The first reason the Sigma 18-35 is the best lens for video on the Canon R7 has to do with its focal length. 18-35 on the R7, which is a 1.6 crop of full frame, is somewhat in the range of the 24-70 that a lot of people use on full frame cameras. So you kind of get that general purpose lens that covers most of the focal lengths you need, unless you need to shoot super telephoto. Now, yes, it still is an 18-35. It's not a 24-70, as yes, 24-70 will look different on the R7 unless you use a speed booster. Number 2 goes into the reason that separates the 18-35 from a lot of 24-70s out there, and it is the fact that the Sigma 18-35 has a 1.8 aperture. So it has a super low aperture, so you can use a lot of the cameras either in low light or get a nice shallow depth of field using this lens, especially compared to using a 24-70 on something like the R7, because you're cropping in anyways, so you're not getting as shallow depth of field as those lenses are capable of. So using the 18-35, shooting at 1.8, you can get a nice shallow depth of field. We're shooting at 1.8 right now with Canon's variable ND adapter, so we can dial in my exposure, and you can see I do have some nice background separation between me and my background, and you don't get that kind of background separation when using a 24-70 on the R7 that's a 2.8 without a focal reducer. The third reason has to do with the autofocus. Now, I've had the Sigma 18-35 for years. I pretty much got it when it was first released, and it's crazy to think about how long I've had this lens, coming close to 10 years. In all of that time, I have never used autofocus on this lens, except for when I put it on some stills camera bodies just to mess around with. But for video, I have never used the autofocus. When I got the Red Komodo, it was my first time to kind of play around with the autofocus on the Sigma 18-35, but as many of you know, the autofocus on the Komodo is nowhere near the kind of autofocus you get on these Canon RF cameras. So not only does the autofocus work really well, but if you're using microphone setups like this or using wireless audio, you're never going to hear the autofocus. However, if you're using an on-camera microphone, then yeah, it is possible, depending on what kind of microphone you're using, you could hear the autofocus as it's working. So do be aware of that. But for most situations like this, like using some kind of wireless audio device, lav, you're not going to hear the autofocus, which makes it perfect for an autofocus run and gun lens. 4 is a little bit of a cheat, and it's how this lens works when paired with Canon's variable ND adapter on the RF camera bodies. Pairing the 18-35 with the VND lets me shoot wide open at f1.8, choose the exact shutter speed I want, and dial in my exposure exactly where I need it to be, which not a lot of cameras have that unless they have built-in ND filters or there are other RF cameras that you can use this variable ND adapter with. I don't know why Sony hasn't come out with some kind of variable ND adapter. I don't know if maybe it's the physics in the mount, but Canon seems to be the only name in the game that has a variable ND mount adapter, which is so important when shooting run and gun work. Now, for narrative work, I tend to stay away from these VND adapters because they do have a little bit of color shift, but for YouTube videos, content creation, anything going on the web, anything that's documentary based, I love using these variable ND adapters because they keep my whole kit really nice and compact, which is the biggest thing I need when shooting run and gun. I need everything to be nice, compact, and as light as possible. 5 is going to be something that comes with using the R7, and it is the IBIS working with the 18-35. The IBIS works pretty well. Now, I have noticed it works the best when shooting at 35 millimeters. However, using the IBIS with the 18-35, not an issue, and I'll be using it a lot for run and gun, just because of how well it works, how steady it keeps the image. I think the IBIS is absolutely fantastic with the 18-35, which I know a lot of you have been asking about. So yes, you can use IBIS with this lens. There's no incompatibility right now. And the beauty with a lot of the Sigma lenses too is if you have the EF dock, where you can dock the lenses and update their firmware, Sigma's been really good about updating firmware of their lenses too. So sometimes, like for instance, when I had the Red Komodo, my autofocus wasn't working quite that great, but then when I updated it, I realized I had the original firmware since the camera was released. The second I updated the firmware, autofocus was working fine with the Komodo. So in the end, the IBIS works really great with the 18-35. All that being said, I have tested a speed booster, but I'm not going to give that as one of the reasons to use it with the R7, because as you may have seen in my speed booster video, which I'll put a link in the description below, it does vignette a little bit and soften the image, although it does give you a extra stop of light, and the speed booster is usable with the 18-35, 24 millimeters and up. However, I would really only use the speed booster and the 18-35 on the Canon R7 if you absolutely need that extra light. You're trying to shoot in just super low light scenarios and you need to be shooting at what is technically f1.2 of light. You're not really going to get a more shallow depth of field unless for whatever reason you're getting the camera a lot closer to your subject, but again, it'll help with that extra light. So those are the 5 reasons that the Sigma 18-35 is the best lens to use for video work with the Canon R7. I know that the Sigma 18-35 is going to be the most popular lens to use with the Canon R7 just because of how versatile it is and how cheap you can get them. I mean, they're reasonably priced brand new, but they've also been out for so long, you can get really great deals on used 18-35s, whether it's on GearFocus, eBay, Facebook Marketplace. I see a lot of people selling them even for under $500 now. So it's very cost efficient for the kind of image quality you get. Again, if you want a full review on the Sigma 18-35, I've already done one of those, so I have a link in the description below just so we don't have to go over everything. But it is absolutely the best bang for your buck lens that you can get on the market, even still today, which pairs nicely with the Canon R7, which in my opinion is the best bang for your buck camera you can get here in 2022. So if you have any questions about the 18-35 R7 or any ideas on future videos you want to see with the Canon R7, please feel free to put them in the comments below. And if you got knowledge and value out of today's video, please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell to keep up to date with the latest videos on the channel. Until next time, my name's Geoff Fagien. Thank you for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next video.